wasn't I didn't have a lot of problem being able to converse with the people. So he chose me as the one non-Jewish person because I knew the German. That was the only reason I happened to be chosen to be have this job, which I immediately took. It took me off of any other responsibility. And then the job was really an 8 to 5 job. You go over there and you just hang around, and in the evening you go back. But I used to go back, rather than I'd go back and have my evening meal, but then I would go back to the hotel because I began to make friends with people. And the other part of it, slowly but surely, one of the fascinating things about it all, the people themselves in each hotel had responsibility for maintaining the hotels, the cleaning, the cooking, the serving. All of these jobs had to be done by the people themselves. And so a community began to develop because these people came from a variety of places and didn't they knew one another in little small groups who would travel together and that sort of thing. But as a total group, they were all strangers to one another as well. And a community began to shape up. As a matter of fact, so much so, and perhaps you will remember this, there was one gentleman who was a Polish Jew who had been a director in Poland, apparently a very known director in Poland. And he established a community theater. Again, as an expression that the people were coming together and making a life for themselves right there.
What was his name?
I can't remember that at all.
Do you remember that?
No.
I remember the first the only production, as far as I knew. I was only there for about 4 or 5 months, and then I had gotten enough points to be demobilized, and of course I wanted to get out of the army as quickly as possible. In any case, they did a first production. I remember that very clearly, and it was a production, the locale of which was Palestine, and the theme was a kibbutz under fire from Arab troops or groups coming down, and they were fought off and sent in array in retreat. And I remember the occasion when friends on either side of me turned and looked and see how I was going to react to it. But as I say, none of this meant anything to me at that time. My idea of an Arab was born from the movies, from seeing Beau Geste and films like that. And so, but the point is that as this community grew, and while I was there, I began to do more with the community, knowing the people, and with my peers in the army. And Bella and her sister were not the first who came to me. I think they came to me because they had heard someone in my hotel one day came to me and asked me whether I could help in any way. They had relatives, they didn't know where they were or anything. And I don't know how I came to know this, maybe one of them knew it, but the Jewish Daily Forward in New York is a very famous Highest?
Highest.
The Hebrew Immigrant
Oh.
Aid Society, but I think you're talking, maybe it's the same thing.
Well, that may be
Yeah.
the.
That's the organization,
The
yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
but it's a
Newspaper.
newspaper.
It still exists today, it's just called the
It's-
Forward now.
Right,
Yeah.
it's still, I see it online regularly. Anyway, that I had, either they told me about it or I knew about it. There was another point, they did not have postal service. So the only way to, that would have been possible would have been to get a GI, to get someone in the Army to use their PO, APO. Someone came and asked me, so I began to write letters for people to the Jewish Daily Forward. First there was this person in this my hotel, and then somebody heard about it in another hotel and came over. So there were several. I can't remember how many. I mean, it wasn't a deluge, but there were several people who came to me, and I began to send those letters out. And then one day, with somebody, older person, came with you
Where?
to see me and ask me. Well, somebody who, I remember that clearly, somebody who was older.
How many people did you actually help? Do you know?
Well, I don't know actually. I don't even know if I helped them. All I did was write these letters. This is the only one that I know
You definitely up there.
was help. The others, I have no idea. I wrote the letters and then, and in time, that's why I say I don't see that I did anything special, really. But anyway, one day, a older person, because one was a teenager, the other was just out of her teens, brought them over to me and said they thought they had a aunt in Detroit, Michigan. Well, that made a whole different kind of story, because I came from Detroit, and all they knew was that the aunt, they knew the name of the aunt, and they knew their own mother's name, but very minimum information. And could I help them? Well, the only thing I knew I could do was to write to my mother. So I wrote to my mother, and as I say, my mother was basically an immigrant. Her speech was limited in terms of, but she was a very resourceful person. It had to be resourceful to think. Myself, I would have thought, find some organization, but she went to the telephone book.
She looked for Shapiro.
And looked for Shapiro's. Well, Detroit has a lot of Shapiro's.
Right.
Albert Shapiro was banned.
Yeah. And she went down the list. I don't know how many she went down, but I do remember her telling me it wasn't the first one. It was several down. Each one of them, she'd give them the information that she had, the limited information that she had. And lo and behold, she reached a point where somebody said, yes.
You know what? I mean, that's how Linda found you.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly, except they didn't have the internet back then. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
But there are
That's how
more
that's how she found
Shapiros.
him.
There are more Shapiros
Right,
in the
you
world
bet
than
there
there
are.
are, that is in the United States, than there are
Yeah.
Ayubs. Ayub is a very, still an uncommon name
Right.
in this country. Anyway, that's how it happened, and I always credit my mother with having done the real work. And I came back to the United States, not knowing anything had happened particularly.